Welcome to Anxious, Broken, Loving It, the podcast for anyone who's ever screamed at a panel, clutched their photo op like it's gospel, cried in a hotel hallway at 2 a.m., or quietly held onto that dream, no matter how far away it feels. I'm Robin, Chaos Gremlin, professional overthinker, conline crier, and proud founder of Trash for J2 Facebook group. This is your unofficial survival guide to navigating conventions, fandom friendships, celebrity encounters, emotional meltdowns, and everything in between, with way too much heart, not enough sleep, and definitely not enough money. From the bunker to the con floor, we're all family here. So deep breath in, wristband on, and here we go. So welcome back, everybody. This is now episode 5 of Anxious, Broken, Loving It. Hope everybody has loved the first 4 episodes, or at least found something in them that could help them or help them connect somehow. Today we're going to be diving into the real emotional roller coaster that is con life, from tears at panels to full-on hotel lobby meltdowns. So just to give you a little bit of context, fresh off of Austin Con, we are actually sitting about, I guess maybe a week out, a little bit less than a week out now from Austin Con, and it's a lot. It was the first con I've been to since I started doing the podcast, which brought a whole different set of experiences for me, and it also kind of is different to process a con immediately afterwards with all of these tips that I've been giving you guys and all these things that I tell you to do. And as I mentioned to somebody, I've said in the past, do as I say, not as I do. And sometimes I don't always follow the best rules that I mention out. We're also at this point about 3.5 weeks out from Vancouver Con, which I will be going to. It will be my first time in Vancouver. Super excited about going to Vancouver Con because, as we all know, that is where Supernatural was filmed for the entire 15 seasons. We'll be doing a location tour. I will somehow be finding myself on that bridge from the finale. I've even joked that I am going to be taking a tent with me and setting up permanent residence there. So it could happen. But what we're going to talk about today is if you've ever sobbed somewhere totally inappropriate in a hotel lobby. Yeah, me too. We all know the tears, the meltdowns, and the moments that make you feel like a con is both heaven and a little bit of hell. So let's talk about that. So con life isn't just panels and merch. It's emotional highs and lows that hit you even after you're home. One of the things that's really hard for people to understand until they're actually at a con is how overwhelming it can be. It starts with registration. Even when you go to pre-registration, it's a lot more low-key, laid back. You don't have to do pre-registration, as we've talked about before. Pre-registration typically happens on Thursday night. It's more of a way for you to just kind of ease your way in. You can register for con anytime registration is open. And always keep in mind, registration has to be done in person because you have to have them scan your ticket. And at that point, they're going to give you your wristband and your lanyard if your ticket requires a lanyard. So that would be either gold, silver, copper that get the lanyards. So we want to talk a little bit about the fact that going into it, it can be very overwhelming, very emotional. We've covered that already a little bit. It was very different for me this year at Austin. Austin is a very special con to me for a lot of reasons. Last year was the first year that they had a Supernatural Con in Austin, and I found it to be personally amazing. I like to say that I got to see Jensen Ackles 5 days in a row, so it was one of the most perfect times in my life. It was very sad on that 6th day when I did not get to see him, but those 5 days in a row were very exciting. Coming back this year, there was a little concern of whether or not there would be a letdown or whether or not it would be as special. It was very different this year. It wasn't as crowded. because it wasn't the first time that it had been there, because there wasn't a radio company concert this year that brought in the crowds, because a lot of people decided last year that August in Austin just was not for them for a plethora of reasons, including the obvious Austin in August. But the night of pre-registration, I did have several people that came up to me that I had not met previously, that not only knew me from the podcast and from Facebook, but also it was very heartwarming to me because they told me that it was their first con and that they had listened to the podcast to prepare for the con. Literally, maybe 30 minutes in, I had somebody tell me, that one of the biggest things that they took from it was that no two con experiences are the same, that we all con differently, and that meant a lot to them. And that, I think, is when I first really felt the connection and my hope that this podcast can be something that not only helps first-time con goers, because I've had a lot of my friends that have been to quite a few cons that have listened to the podcast because A, they're good people, B, they want to make sure they support me, and C, there's also the curiosity factor. But they've mentioned that, they're not necessarily the target audience. But that being said, I think there's still a lot for all of us to be learned. There's still a lot for all of us to learn, even those of us that are con veterans. We can learn from others that are con veterans, but we can also learn from people whose first con it is. Sometimes after you've been to a few cons, you start to see things a little differently. And I think sometimes we can tend to become either, I don't want to say jaded, because I don't think jaded is the right word, but we either take things for granted or we don't necessarily appreciate full experiences. And it's always good to see that through somebody else's eyes and somebody else's viewpoints. Some of the other things that I want to talk about that I did a little bit differently for Austin Con, because Austin is one of my favorite cities in the entire world. I actually did go in a little earlier for the con than typical, mainly because it was cheaper for me, con math cheaper, for me to fly in on Wednesday and get the hotel an extra night than to fly in on Thursday. And plus that would allow me time to adjust, not be so rushed. I love the idea. Again, con math cheaper because I then had to lose an extra day of work. But so this time I flew in on a Wednesday, went ahead, checked into the con hotel, watched Countdown, was able to kind of adjust myself to the hotel, which is a very different experience for me. I typically hit the ground running. Then Thursday afternoon, because I did sleep in Thursday morning. Thursday afternoon, as soon as I went downstairs, people were starting to arrive for the con. A lot of vendors, a lot of the creation workers. I went down to the lobby and I was actually about to go for a walk out around the hotel. Saw a few of my friends, and next thing I know, I'd been down in the lobby for a couple of hours talking to friends. It's a very, very unifying moment whenever people start to come in, when you start to see people. It's also a very overwhelming moment. Even for myself, who I consider a con veteran, even for myself, it can be very difficult when you start seeing so many people come in that are coming in for the same thing that you love. But it's also a lot of pressure because suddenly you want to make sure you're telling everybody hi. You want to make sure you're turned on. People are always excited to be there, but by the same token, I don't want to, especially for somebody that has seen me on Facebook, I don't want to not necessarily greet them in a way that makes them feel welcoming. So it can be very overwhelming even for con vets, because there's so much going on. So many people trying to come in. It's overwhelming for the vendors. In this particular hotel, the con was spread out over 3 floors. So they had to bring their stuff in, get it set up. It was hot. Not as hot as last year, but it was still hot. Some of these vendors traveled from quite a while. Some of them had been at a previous con the week before. Some of the workers had been at a previous con the weekend before. So it can be a lot. But it's very exciting seeing seeing people that you haven't seen at the last few cons, going ahead and making those connections. So it was very exciting for me already on Thursday afternoon. Now, I will say, and this is something that was unique to me for this con, and I will go into it much further on a future podcast. But for this particular con, I was given the opportunity to experience the VIP experience. Had never done the VIP experience before. Had done meet and greets, but never VIP. So this was a very different experience for me, and it did affect how my con ran a little bit this time. We will talk about that at much length about in future episodes. But keep in mind, the VIP experience is only 10 people per con. So I don't want to focus too much on that because there's so many more of us that aren't having that VIP experience. But I do want to talk about it at some point so people know about it, know what's offered, know what it's like, know if it's the right fit for you. So on Thursday night, went through registration, met some new friends, met some new people. There was a lot going on Thursday. They did the walker tour Thursday morning, which I did choose not to do this time. I really did not decide until late Wednesday night for sure that I wasn't going to do it. From my understanding, they only had about 8 people that did the tour this year. Things were a little bit more torn down than they were last year, so I am glad that I was able to go last year. But I did talk to some people that went on it this year, and it was still a great experience. They had a different tour guide because Thor had another engagement that he was not able to, that he had a previous engagement that conflicted with this. So they had a different tour guide. From my understanding, it was a great tour. There was some weather issues, some rain, so they weren't able to get out at a few spots. They did go to the side step. They were able to take some posters from the side step, which was a nice touch. I did see some of the pictures from the side step. It was definitely, you could tell that since they weren't fresh off production like they were last year when we went, it was different. But like I said, I did talk to several people that did, and it was a great experience. And I'm so glad that they were able to get that experience. Now, some of the other things that we want to talk about is I want to talk about the fact that con life isn't just about panels, which we've talked about. It isn't just about the photo ops that we've talked about. It's about those emotional highs and lows that you're going to have during the con. For example, panel tears. When you go to the panels, you're going to have moments that hit you. You're going to be sitting there and you're not going to realize it until all of a sudden the next thing you know, you're crying. I always joke that Kim Rhodes in particular is going to make sure she makes me cry at least once per con. She has that amazing ability to touch on exactly the right part of something and to put it in she's able to verbalize it so well and connect her experience so well with others that at least once every con, Kim Rhodes is going to make me cry. Typically there are others that make me cry, but Kim is always a guarantee. And part of the reason that happens is not because I'm dramatic, although I can be, but it's because it's my brain processing the excitement, the emotional intensity of being there. It's normal. It's perfectly normal to cry when you're overwhelmed with excitement or empathy. And if somebody is asking a question at a con, and one of the things we've talked about in the past is trauma dumping. Yes, we completely discourage trauma dumping, but there are going to be times when people have stories that they do tell. You're going to be touched by some of those stories. You'll see that the people on the panel are touched by those stories. The way that we process that, everybody's going to process it differently, but the way that we process that may lead to tears. It's okay to cry during a panel. It's okay to laugh during a panel. One of the things that I always say is you want to go to as many panels as you can possibly fit into your schedule, because you're going to be shocked at how much you enjoy the panels. That actor that you don't even think that you're interested in seeing, you're going to love their panel. personal favorite of mine is always Gil McKinney. Gil McKinney is that actor that, he's only on a couple of episodes. I was never, the first con that I was at that he was at, I completely was not expecting, to feel attached to him, to realize how sweet he is. I think I had probably seen him maybe 3 or 4 cons. It was in Charlotte I don't remember which year, because after a while they start to blend together. But I do remember that it was in Charlotte one year when there was he was doing a panel with David Hayden Jones, and every time he would answer a question or he would say something, I was just struck by how genuine and how grateful and how wonderful and just fantastic he was. He's very intelligent. He's had a very lengthy career. He's done quite a few things. He's actually one of the few actors other than J2 that I have done a photo op with. I did a duo op with him and a friend. It was him, David Hayden Jones, and a friend of mine, Wendy. We did a photo op in Jacksonville. He typically will sing at Saturday Night Special. He has the most amazing voice that you would not expect to come out of him. Gil McKinney is always my unsung hero. I was fortunate enough in Austin that he actually had a solo panel, which is very unusual. Gil doesn't typically do solo panels. He's a little bit more comfortable on stage playing off of somebody. He did on Friday, I believe he did a panel with Matt Cohen, which was hilarious, was great. But then on Saturday, he did a panel by himself, which I loved even more because with Matt, it was much more upbeat and hilarious because Matt only has one volume and it's super high and super energetic. Whereas when it's just Gil on the stage, he's a little bit more laid back. Somebody asked him about his guilty pleasure songs that he sings, and the next thing you know, he's busting out into At This Moment by Billy Vera and the Beatles. Billy Vera and the Beaters, which is a personal favorite of mine and will always, for me, be Alex P. Keaton and Ellen's song. If you're at all a Family Ties fan, you get that reference. And when he busted out into that song, I absolutely was just over the moon. That being said, he also sang a little bit of Ariel from The Little Mermaid. So both of those were great experiences. Both of those were panels for me that are, if I can anyway make the schedule work, I'm going to try and see Gil. DJ is another one. If I can make that schedule work, I'm going to see DJ. Unfortunately, in Austin, it was much harder for me to work him into the schedule. Did not get as much DJ time in Austin as I would have liked. I'm hoping to make up for that in Vancouver. DJ is a charm. If you ever get a chance to see a DJ panel and you want to get in line to ask a question and it has not already been asked, please ask him to tell the Mary Pickford story. I will tell you, you can never hear that story too many times. Every time I hear it, it's even more hilarious. I may have even mentioned this on the podcast before. I have non-supernatural fandom friends that I tell the Mary Pickford story to all the time because it is that hilarious. And he has never told a bad version of it. The panels can be emotional for us for a multitude of reasons. There's nostalgia involved. People will ask questions about the show, about their characters, especially for first-timers. It's an opportunity to see some of these actors that you haven't seen in necessarily out of context of the show. Jensen and Jared and Misha sometimes we'll see in a lot of other things. Mark Shepard has done a lot of other things. But some of these other actors, you may not have seen them in other things. You may not be familiar with their other work. You may not be familiar with their sense of humor. For example, Kim Rhodes is very different, I think, from how Jodie is. They have similar ways about them, but Kim is so much, I'm not even sure of the right word for her. A lot of people refer to her as a con mom. Part of that comes from her being on Disney Channel, on Sweet Life. A lot of people remember her from that. I never watched that. My first exposure to her was Supernatural, and then I saw her in Criminal Minds as the most awful, horrible, terrible character ever. And I'm like, ew, I'm supposed to like her. But then when I did get a chance to actually see her at a con, she is so warm and genuine, and she is actually somebody else that I have done a photo op with outside of J2. I have not done an autograph with her yet at this point, but I would love to at some point because I would love the interaction with her. I'd also like to do a meet and greet with her, just because I love her no holds barred, and her and Bree together. When I first started going to panels, I was a little unsure about. It was a little overwhelming. They It's funny because one of the things that they teach us is take up your space. And those two women take up their space. And when you're not used to that, when you're used to seeing women in boxes and you're used to seeing women have to fall in line and do certain things, it seems like, oh, okay, this might be a little bit more than what I was expecting. But now they have taught me so much about taking up my space, owning my space. Them and all the women that are at the cons are very open and vocal about talking about the unfairness with women in the industry, not specifically Supernatural, although there are fewer women, it's a show about two brothers, and the other characters don't get as much screen time, obviously. So it's not a hugely feminine show. But one of the things that Kim likes to talk about is, like, when the cons first started, there was one woman allowed at a time. One woman. And so when Bree first started on the show, she was concerned. She was worried. She didn't think that she was going to like her. She felt like she was going to be pitted against her. Because if people liked Bree more than her, Bree was going to be the one woman at the con. But instead, now we've got, for example, at Austin, we had Bree, we had Elena, we had Kim, we had Samantha Smith, we had Ruth. So it's much different now from just having the one woman at a con. It's much more acceptable to have, like, the women panels and the women photo ops, and to embrace the fact that we have these strong women, not just on the show, but also in their actual lives that they share with us. You also have that fandom connection. Whenever you're watching the show, we all have our favorite characters. Charlie is a favorite character of mine. She was not in Austin this year. She will be in Vancouver. So I'm really excited to see Felicia Day. So you make a connection with somebody that was a particular favorite of yours on the show. You get a chance to share a personal moment with them, possibly. You can get in line and ask them a question, and you can connect with them that way. There are some people that have gone to multiple cons, that have done multiple meet and greets, that, you'll see the actors whenever they call on people. They'll call them by name. One thing that I always tell people, and this is why I always say, don't compare your con experience to anybody else. My interaction with Jensen is going to be very different than somebody that is going to a con for the first time than their interaction with Jensen. I've been to over 20 cons at this point. He recognizes me. We have a comfortability with each other. And when I say comfortability, yeah, I'm still popping Klonopin before I get in the line. But he recognizes me. He feels, it's almost as though we can have like an actual conversation. He doesn't have to feel as on all the time with me. He doesn't have to worry that if he says the wrong thing, he's ruining my once-in-a-lifetime experience. There's a little bit more pressure for both him and the first-time con goer. And that's what I always remind people when I say don't compare your experiences to others. Keep in mind that for all of the actors, they are trying so hard to make every single person's experience amazing. All they want is for you to be happy. All they want is for what could be a once in a lifetime experience for you to be fabulous. They want you to walk away smiling. They want you to walk away remembering that moment. Sorry. They want you to walk away remembering that moment and wanting more of it and knowing that you felt seen in that moment. So, speaking of panel tears, again, keep in mind, there's nothing to be ashamed of about crying. It doesn't mean you're dramatic, even though I am. It's just the way that your brain processes. And keep in mind, I'm a week out still, so I'm still processing a lot of the things that happened at the con and that have happened since the con. Some feedback I'd like to hear from some of you. I know a lot of you that before you go to cons, before your first con, you've watched YouTube panels of the cons. That's how most of us discovered these cons, to be honest. I discovered that these cons were a thing through primarily Krista, who is no longer with us, and Gail's YouTube videos. It was one of those things where, once I'd watched the show like 4 or 5 times, I was looking to add another layer to my experience. And so I had started watching like fan edit videos on YouTube. And the next thing I know, I come across these videos of these panels on YouTube. And I'm like, what is this? And that was whenever I discovered that these cons existed. And so that is how so many of us, found these conventions. And so, some questions for some of you guys that it's your first con, maybe before you ever even came to a con. What about those YouTube videos? What made you want to come to a con? Because for me, it's funny because I remember my first time watching Supernatural. I immediately, first off, full disclosure, I've probably told this story before. I watched Supernatural for Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Denny Duquette girl here, through and through. As far as I'm concerned, Jeffrey Dean Morgan was the holy grail. My sister-in-law had been trying to get me to watch Supernatural multiple times. She had suggested it to me. I'm like, no, doesn't seem like my kind of show. No, I don't think I'm interested. And she just happened to, after like the 5th or 6th mention, she just happened to say, well, Jeffrey Dean Morgan's in it. And I'm like, nope. Why didn't you lead with that? That was definitely your headline. And so I decided to watch it. And full disclosure again, first time I watched it, turned all the lights off because this is a scary show. Turned all the lights off. It's like 10 o'clock at night. I had worked a full day. Fell asleep. So not, a super auspicious first start. So I'm like, I don't know. So I tried again the next day. Fell asleep. Third time was the charm. Made it through the pilot. Was absolutely fascinated. Immediately hooked. Hooked not for Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who does not make that appearance in the first episode. Immediately hooked for Dean and Sam Winchester. Immediately hooked on the relationship between those. And I say Jeffrey Dean doesn't make an appearance in the first episode. He does in the opening scenes with Mary, but we don't really get to see his backstory or what's going on or why he's missing or what's happening with him hunting. But immediately, Sam and Dean, I was drawn into this story immediately. And my whole thing was this connection that the two of them have is something that appeals to me and that I want to see follow through, and I want to see it's a connection that I was looking for in my life at that time. I was going through some personal things at that time, as I think all of us who discovered Supernatural and took to it so well. And so after I had watched it several times, and I would go through a love-hate relationship. Dean was always my favorite. I would have moments where I would be like, God, Dean, that was a really douchey thing to do. There are episodes where the first time I watched it, I absolutely hated Sam. Hated Sam. On my rewatches, I understand now his motivation a lot more. And I think Jared acted those scenes so well that he made me dislike Sam. And yet, he was coming from a place of his own trauma and hurt. And it was too hard for me to see that because I am always just by nature typically drawn to your stereotypical, bad boy, doesn't let anybody in, the whole Dean character. But so after I had watched that a few times, and again at this point, Dean's hands down my favorite. And I like Sam. I'm enjoying the show. I love the camaraderie. But as soon as I watched the first Jensen and Jared panel, I discovered that Jared Padalecki was just the most precious man on the face of the earth. Was completely different in his affectation and the way that he reacted to situations, and was so empathetic and so outgoing and so open about his mental health that I was immediately drawn to that and found him to be such a sweet and special and wonderful person, and felt like immediately it brought in a new layer for me. So I'm curious, for those of you that watched convention panels before you went to your first convention, or for those of you that have watched convention panels but still not been to your first convention, what is it that you see in those panels that makes you want to attend the convention? What is the connection? What makes you want, because as we know, these aren't cheap experiences. After all, we're anxious, broke, and loving it. So what is it about these experiences that you want, that make them special to you, that you want to fork it out and to have those moments and to connect with these people? So that's some feedback that we'd really love to hear. What has gotten to you? Please share that with us, because one of the things I'd like to have in the future episodes is a lot more listener feedback. I'm starting to get a lot of feedback. I got a lot of feedback in Austin in person. I'm getting some emails, I'm getting some private messages, but I would love to be able to share that with other listeners so we can see how we all compare and what makes us all different, but what makes us all the same as well. And while panel tears are mostly beautiful, sometimes the con hits you in less glamorous ways. For example, walking back to your hotel if you're at an off-site hotel, or even going back to your room after a full day of panels, autographs, time in the vendor room, navigating the crowds, photo ops, feeling completely drained and nearly breaking down in the lobby because everything hits at once. Because you're realizing, oh my God, I'm here. I'm actually doing this for myself. This is my show. This is my favorite show that I've connected with on so many levels. And I'm meeting young John Winchester. I'm getting a chance to meet Sheriff Jody. I'm meeting Bobby Singer. Like, it's so hard to make those, to realize I'm meeting Chuck. For me, one of the big ones was meeting Jack Klein. It's somewhat of an unpopular opinion, but my third favorite character, other than Charlie, who because she was on fewer episodes, I consider her a smaller character. But my third favorite character on the show, behind Sam and Dean, even behind John Winchester, I think. It's close. It's close. Primarily only because he's probably in more episodes, is Jack Klein. I love Jack Klein. Which means that for me, Alex Calvert is such a win. Such an amazing person to interact with. I just adore him. I love his character. I love his storyline. I love his softness. I love Alex Calvert's sense of humor. One of my favorite things is at a panel, when somebody asks him a question, he's like, well, I don't know. I didn't write the show. And Sometimes, much like with Mark Shepard, people don't necessarily know how to take his sense of humor. I have a very similar sense of humor, so I get it, and I always find it very funny. Um, so walking back through the lobby or in the elevator, it can be, you can have that moment where you're in the elevator and there's like 10 people. It's the end of the night and everybody's just so quiet because we're all exhausted. And you're trying not to break down until you get back to your room, till you get away from the crowds. But it's okay. Nobody is ever going to judge you for being overwhelmed at these cons. Nobody is ever going to judge you for having to take a moment. It's the nature of the beast. We all get it. We've all had those times. It's okay to take micro breaks during cons. Even if for 10 minutes, you just need to go into a corner and stand by yourself. It's okay. You don't have to be on all the time. You don't have to perform. You don't have to interact. Just take that 10 minutes out. Just stand in a corner. It's kind of like, whenever they say, like with kids, well, if they close their eyes, they think the adults can't see them. Same concept. Go into the corner, face the wall. Nobody's going to bother you. You'll be fine. Take that time. Go to your hotel room if you need to. If you're staying on site, that's one of the advantages of staying on site, is that you can, go up there. I will say that going to the Roadhouse is a good place to decompress. You can go there and kind of escape a little bit from everything. There's some quiet. They're very good there about knowing if you want interaction or if you're just coming in there and you just want to sit for a while. Keep in mind that taking care of your mental health in small bits can help prevent larger breakdowns. I will say in Austin, and I had mentioned it on a previous podcast, that karaoke is one of the things that I will typically cut if I have to, even though I love karaoke. I was so excited about karaoke in Austin because the theme was boy band theme, and if you know me, boy bands are my jam. Old school New Kids on the Block girl here, Backstreet Boys, love them all. That being said, I had, even having come in early an extra day, it was a lot. And I knew I could feel it in myself that I just wasn't going to have the spoons for karaoke. I wanted it so much. Thursday night, Steve Carlson was doing a concert that was non-con related. But so I had went to that concert on Thursday night. So having done that and then doing the full day on Friday, I kind of wanted to add a few things in Friday night, but one of our yearly pilgrimages for one of my friends, Kathy and I, is to go to Terry Black's, and Friday felt like the best time that was going to happen. So we did go to Terry Black's in Austin that night, and so after all that, there just wasn't enough spoons left in me for karaoke, and it pained me. I will say that I did a lot of things in Austin, and there's so much that I did not do that I'm sad about. That's where the FOMO comes in. Always remember, you can't do it all. There's no way you can do it all and survive. So I was really sad about missing karaoke, especially because I love karaoke, I love DJ, and I loved the theme. I was so excited about it. But let's talk about some of the emotional ups and downs that you can have during the con. Some of the highs can be getting a selfie with your favorite celebrity or running into them in the hall. At this particular hotel, because we were on 3 different floors, people have got stories of running into the celebrities in the elevator, sharing elevators with certain celebrities, seeing them on the escalators. Those are always great stories. It's always just an exciting moment to just have. And those aren't technically in the wild moments because we're still at the con, but it's an experience and an interaction that you're not paying for, that you weren't expecting, that's just kind of happening off the cuff. So it's exciting. And then there can be the lows. You're exhausted, overstimulated in a crowded hallway where it's really loud. For example, Saturday night in Austin with the radio company, there was the radio company event, there was Misha's event, there was a lot going on Saturday. So it can be very loud, very overwhelming, very overstimulating. That can kind of drain you a little bit. Another low is missing a panel that you really wanted to see. Finding out that a panel, somebody that you wanted to see, like if you wanted to see Chad Lindbergh, he was only there for Friday, except for Thursday when he did the Ghost tour, which I really wanted to do, but had already planned to do Steve's concert. But I heard amazing, wonderful, great things about the Ghost Hunt. FYI, if you do ever get the opportunity to do that at a con. But just being really disappointed that you missed a panel of somebody you really wanted to see. So I didn't really, the only interaction that I had with Chad the entire weekend was, since I did do the VIP, I did have the 10-minute meet and greet with him with the other 9 members of the VIP. So I was glad to have that at least, so that I could have that interaction with him, because I did miss his panels and I did not get a chance to do anything else with him. It can be very disappointing if you plan on doing a photo op with a celebrity at a particular time. So let's say you plan on doing your photo op with Jensen on Saturday. You had your outfit already. You're ready to go. You're rushing from here to there. And then something happens and the schedule runs off a little bit here. And Jensen gets pulled out of ops, or his ops get finished before you get done with what you are doing, which is perfectly fine because you can still do that op on Sunday. You'll still get that op, but your adrenaline is already running to do that op on Saturday. You're already prepared to do that op on Saturday, so it can be a little disappointing as well. So those are other examples of just lows during the con where you just get frustrated with the system. Some mental health tips to help you through that. Pace yourself. I always tell everybody, it's not a sprint, guys, it's a marathon. Do not go too hard too fast. For me, Friday is always my prime easing in day. Like you will catch me trying to catch the panels, real laid back, spending time in the vendor's room. If I'm going to do a baby op, that's going to be the day I'm going to do it, because the lines are going to be less. There's less crowds that day. You can really ease into things. So if I can work my schedule so that I can be there on Friday and get things done, then that's how I'm going to do it. Going to pace myself, because come Sunday night, you are going to be exhausted if you have been going full speed since Thursday night. Trust me. Set your expectations. Realize, again, you can't do everything. Remember, don't compare your experience to the person in line in front of you. Don't compare your experience to something somebody posted on Facebook. Don't compare your experience to anyone else's experience. Comparison is the thief of joy. Enjoy your experience. Expect that it's going to be unique and pure to you. And remember that the connection that you had with that particular celebrity is unique for both you and them, and that nobody else at that con had that exact same experience. And also recognize emotional roller coasters. There's going to be times when you are like, oh my God, I'm so excited, it's time for my photo op. I was literally pacing Saturday. I changed into the dress that I wanted to wear, and I was pacing back and forth in my hotel room. I decided, okay, let's take a little bit of our anti-anxiety medication. Let's medicate just a little bit. Took a little bit of a half of a Klonopin. Went down to the VIP room. Then proceeded to pace all around there. Could not sit down, which was quite amusing because several of the girls that were in the VIP, it was their first con. And they were like, why are you so nervous? You've done this a million times. And as I say, and will continue to say, if I do not get nervous before every photo op that I do, I will stop doing photo ops. For me, that first glance at Jensen, it is just, that is when my con starts officially for me, is when I get, that's when my adrenaline is at its peak probably, is when I get that first glimpse of him. The very first glimpse that I did get of him was at Jensen and Steve photo ops. Amazing. very excited. As we all probably know by now, he has shaved for Vought Rising, which is not a new look for him, but it is a new look in the last few years. He looks much more, he did Supernatural for 15 years clean shaven. So we have to keep in mind that this is, we're used to seeing him like this before, but we've gotten used to seeing him with that beard. The man looks at least 10 years younger now without that. So many people, of course, the joke is, he's like a dolphin's belly. It's taken the line from the show. I have to wonder how many times he probably heard that about the dolphin's belly this weekend, to be honest. It's okay to feel like a social zombie in the hotel hallway. Literally everybody's been there. If they're not there at that moment, at some point during that weekend, people are running on autopilot. So if somebody walks past you that you feel like you've made a connection with, you feel like you're friends with, and they don't even acknowledge you, honestly, probably didn't see you. They are probably overthinking everything they've done throughout the day. I have so many people that tell me, oh, I saw you earlier in the day, but you were running here and you were running there. For me, there's never enough time during a con and during the day to fit in all the things that I want to do, all the people I want to see, all the friends I want to hug, all the selfies I want to take. There's just never enough time during the con. There's always so much going on. So just keep in mind, we're all having those moments. If you overlook somebody, I literally had somebody that I spoke to on Thursday, hugged on Thursday, and then when I saw them, I think Saturday, they were like, oh, I haven't seen you. I'm like, saw you Thursday. Gave you a hug. They're like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I am not offended at all. I have done that. Completely understand there's a lot going on those days. So while we are talking about emotional con moments, I do want to throw this in here randomly, not necessarily about this episode, but what we are going to have on an upcoming episode that we're going to talk about is fandom friendships. Fandom friendships that saved you, fandom friendships that broke you, con crushes or heartbreaks, emotional con experiences in hotel lobbies, lines, or panels. This fandom can be so complex. You can build the tightest of friendships, and then you can suddenly feel like maybe that friendship isn't there anymore. People do drift apart. Things do happen in the fandom. Things do get misconstrued. We're honestly and truthfully, I tell people this all the time, we honestly are like just one big family. That there are certain cousins that, you get annoyed with and you don't really want to talk to. But if anybody else were to, come for that cousin, you're going to get them. But, people have disagreements about certain things. They have disagreements about the way, certain episodes were written, about the way certain things are interpreted. One thing you will always hear from all of the actors, and I stand by this with them, the show is art. They make it. They interpret it the way they choose. And then you, in turn, can interpret it the way you choose. Most of us do not interpret it all the same way. Again, it's just like conning the way that you con. What I take from an episode is not necessarily the same thing that you take from an episode. What I love to do is have healthy discussions with people about episodes. And when I say healthy discussions, it is discussions where you do not say, no, you're wrong, or no, that's not right. It is where you say, no, this is why I see it this way. I can respect how you see it this way, but let me tell you why I see it this way. And I've had conversations with people where things that I didn't see a certain way, I was like, oh, you know what, you're right. Like, I can see that. So that's always a good thing to have. But we can have fandom divides occasion. I will say fandom divides are far more common online, in essentially Twitter is the main place, than they are at conventions. At conventions, we pretty much, not everybody agrees about everything, but we're in our happy place. We're there. We're going to enjoy it. If somebody likes something I don't like, I'm never going to yuck on anybody else's yum. That's your yum. Don't yuck on my yum, I won't yuck on your yum, is pretty much my general philosophy. But sometimes you'll have friends that have misunderstandings and fall out. If you've had that happen, we want to hear about it. Tell us about somebody that you met at a con that you wouldn't have met without the con, that now you consider one of your best friends. Now you consider a member of your family. Tell us about something that you've considered a betrayal. And all of this can be anonymous. This is absolutely not something that I'm planning to post to pick apart people. It's to give people a general idea of whenever they go into these conventions of what to expect, because it can be overwhelming, the dynamics of how the fandom works sometimes. You can absolutely email us. Our email is anxiousbrokelovingit@gmail.com. We have gotten quite a few interesting emails already about some things that I do want to cover in future podcasts. One thing that I do want to make sure that I cover is, if I ever, please don't ever, ever take anything that I say to, I don't ever want anything that I say to lower your opinion of what happened in your con. I had somebody that emailed me that was very concerned that she had trauma dumped on Jared. And when she explained the situation, it was not a trauma dump at all. It was completely, I love you, I appreciate you, this saved my life, the type of thing that he loves to hear. So, it was a very, small, it was not like in a meet and greet where, she spoke for 20 minutes about anything. It was, so I don't ever want anybody to feel like anything that I say is going to, these are not hard, fast rules that I'm laying down. These are guidelines to make your experience better. Again, no two people con the same way. The way that I con is not the way that you con. Just because I choose to do some things differently than you, if yours works for you, you do you. Enjoy your con. Please don't ever feel like I'm setting forth rules. Nothing that I put in this podcast, unless I specifically say this is a rule from creation, because creation does have certain rules at their conventions. For example, not giving gifts at photo ops. That is a creation rule. But I don't ever want you to feel like anything that I say is taking away from your experience. I don't ever want you to look back on an experience you had after you hear my podcast and say, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Because we're all going to second guess our interactions anyway, on our own, with our own anxiety. Please do not let me contribute to your anxiety, ever. Please. And if I ever do that, shut that noise down. Send me a message. Say, hey, this kind of came off this way. And I will immediately make sure that I fix that. But so I do want to hear from you. We want to hear from you about relationships that you've built. I've got friends that live in Australia. I've got friends that live in the UK. I've got friends that live in Germany. Let's talk about some of those friendships that you've got. Let's talk about some of these people that you became friends with that you only knew from the internet. I was so honored, because one of the things that does happen is people will come up to me, because I post my photo ops anywhere that I can get away with posting them. And I am very recognizable because I have this white hair that I finally let go gray after COVID. And so I'm very recognizable. So always feel comfortable coming up to me. But I was very excited, that people came up to me and introduced themselves to me. Last year at Nashville, I did have the opportunity. We did a little, what I call a meet and greet that we had down, and it was a much bigger bar area. It was a much bigger hotel, but it was a bigger bar area that we could have where just some of the newbies could meet up with some of the veterans, and we could kind of pair up and help them out. I want you to know I would love to do that at every single con. Unfortunately, at Austin, I wanted to do something like that. Time did not permit. Hopefully at Vancouver, if you're going to Vancouver, we can do that. But regardless if we have a formal meetup or not, if you see me, please approach me. I did have somebody, a lot of times if I'm hot, I'll pull my hair back in a scrunchie. I would see people start to walk towards me. I would pull the scrunchie out of my hair so they could see that it was me, because you never see me with scrunchies in my hair in the photo ops. But so always feel comfortable coming up to me. Always feel comfortable asking me questions. Always feel comfortable introducing yourself. Always feel comfortable asking me to help you with anything. Anything that I can help you with, I'm either going to do my best to help you with, or I'm going to find the person that can help you. But sometimes we meet people at these cons, we might hang out here and there, and then maybe we find out we're not the best fits. Sometimes that's what we call con heartbreaks. Realizing that the people that you thought were really good people, really good for you, really good fits for you, aren't necessarily the people that are going to be your family that you're going to want to hang out with at cons, and that's okay. You're going to find other people that are going to be your people. It's going to hurt when you realize that the ones that you thought were aren't, but it's okay. I want to hear those stories too and how you managed to get past them. I've had some of those situations as well. People that, we weren't necessarily the best of friends, but, we would talk and we were somewhat close. And then maybe I would say something on Facebook that they wouldn't necessarily agree with. And next thing I know, I'm blocked, which is fine. Always cultivate your space to what you need it to be. And what the way that we've handled it is if I see them in con spaces, one of them, like we had a conversation, one of them we talked about it, we both go to a lot of cons, we'll see each other, we know a lot of the same people, we're going to speak to each other, we don't have any ill will towards each other, so that's how we chose to deal with it. You want to find the healthiest and the best way to deal with what I call friendship breakups as you can. There are also romantic connections that happen sometimes. There are people that meet up romantically at cons. I'd love to hear about some of those. I only know a handful of them personally, but I'd love to hear those stories. To me, those are some of the most heartwarming stories. So please, again, you can email us. Our email is anxiousbrokelovingit@gmail.com. You can message us on our Facebook page, which is Anxious Broken Loving It. You can post on that page if you would like to remain anonymous. It should give you the option of being anonymous. I run the Trash for J2 Facebook group. You can go in there. Again, you can make it anonymous. My name on Facebook is Robin Phillips Silva. You can send me a friend request or follow me on Facebook. You can send me a message on there. I also have TikTok. My TikTok, we have the Anxious Broke Loving It TikTok. There's also my personal TikTok, which, let me see. Oh, sorry, did not mean to have you actually hear my TikTok. But my actual TikTok is Robin Phillips Silva, and it'll pop up as Quiet Girl. So I have a lot of J2 content on that, so you can go to that as well. Any combination of those are good ways to contact me. If you want to send it to just my personal email, you can do that. It's quietgirl with 2 L's @gmail.com. Whatever way is best for you to feel comfortable contacting me or reaching out, or if you know somebody that knows me, send them a message. If you feel comfortable with them, but you don't want me to necessarily know who you are, send the message through them. Like I said, completely anonymous, no names unless you say, hey, please say my name because you want to shout out on the podcast. I'll be glad to say your name. But I just want to share some of those stories so people will see that they aren't alone in some of these interactions and some of these things that they run into. So I would love to get some feedback from you guys on things like that. Now, that being said, and those stories are not going to be in our next episode, but they are going to be in an upcoming episode. I want to get some of the stories in and be able to go through them and get them prepared for an upcoming episode. But now the emotion is not just the con itself. Your emotional ride is going to continue afterwards. The con ends, and then con drop hits. So con drop. Con drop can be evil and wicked and horrible and depressing. There are so many ways that so many of us try to deal differently with con drop. It is 99.9% impossible to avoid con drop. It is because you're going from that adrenaline of go, 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 doing all these great things, being in all these social situations, meeting all of these people that are your heroes. Like I said, seeing Jensen Ackles for 5 days straight last year, to all of a sudden now you're back at work checking emails. Or, you're back at work, like in my case, you're back at work filling prescriptions. You're back at work, like traveling for work. You're back taking care of like the 4 kids that you're taking care of, that your husband was kind enough to make sure everything was taken care of while you took that special con weekend just for you. We all have things that we have to come back to, our realities that we have to come back to, the realities that allow us to have these con weekends. And it can be tough. It can be really tough. I'm not going to say that I've found the perfect way to solve con drop. I've tried quite a few different things. I have tried binging the show as soon as I get back. I have tried throwing myself into work as soon as I get back. I have tried posting my photo ops to every corner of the internet and sending it to every person that I have ever met for days on end to relive those moments. I have made sure that I told everybody my personal stories of what happened. I have written down what happened. We all have different ways of dealing with it. For me, I have discovered for me, one of the things that is not good for me to do is to discuss my personal interactions. You won't very often hear me discuss any longer a personal interaction with Jensen or with Jared. Simply because people tend to pick those apart. If you put them out there, they pick them apart. You will be accused of lying. You will be accused of overinflating it. You will have people that will be jealous. You will have people that will say, oh, well, that's great, but this is what happened with me. So as I say, you don't want to compare your experiences. You'll have people that will start comparing your experiences for you. And that's just not what you want to do. Some of my closest friends may know. A lot of them, I don't even tell them. Like, those are my experiences that I have. Those are what keep me going from con to con. I have particular rituals with each of the guys that I do, especially Jared. I have a particular ritual I typically do at each con that are just things that, for me, make my con experience go better, and I have found makes my post-con drop a little bit better. For example, on Sunday nights, I used to always get a auto from both of them on both Saturday and Sunday night. Now that they've been doing the radio company event on Saturday night, I have pretty much the cons that I have went to that have had the radio company panel on Saturday night, I have not done an auto with Jensen and Jared on Saturday night because I feel like Jensen's a little bit more rushed, and I don't want the more rushed experience, and I don't want to be standing in line for Jared's auto when I'm concerned about getting myself to the panel and being there and getting a good seat. So, but one thing that I have that does still help me with the way that my con ends is on Sunday nights. I get an auto from both of them. It really depends. Typically, Jensen's autos end before Jared's. For me, I do not necessarily hop right in line as soon as they call my row because I'm not in any hurry. To me, that's the end of con, and I'm not rushing to finish it. So I will go, I'm not going to say I always go like towards the end, but typically a lot of times they may be doing last call before I get in line for autos. And that's because I'm going to stay in that autograph room until both of them leave anyway. Jensen does usually finish first just because that's just the nature of how things run. But to me, that con is not over until they leave that autograph room. They tell everybody bye, they wave bye, we cheer for them, we yell bye at them. That's the end of my con experience. That helps me end my con on a positive note. And for some, they don't want to be in there for that. Like they give their auto, they leave. Like they're done. They're ready. They want to go get dinner. They want to go ahead and drive back. They want to get some rest. Like I said, for all of us, it's different. But for me, that is how my con is ending. Is I want my last interaction to be with Jensen and Jared. I want it to be at Otto's because I feel like I do have a little bit more opportunity to speak to them at Otto's than at any other time, other than maybe if I get to ask a question at the meet and greet or the gold panel. So for me, that helps me end my con on a high note. Some things that will help people: journaling. Going ahead and writing down your experiences. Whether you write them down daily as they happen, if you want to write it down as at the end as it all happens, you'll find that it can be very hard to recall some moments as time goes by. You'll think that there's no way I'm ever going to forget this, but you will. So writing it down, journaling it, saving it, being able to go back and look at it and remember those moments can really help. A lot of times I'll put them into the notes file of my phone, like right after they happen. That's a really good way for me. You have the con and you just feel like you're completely floating, and then reality hits. Again, that's con drop. You can have sadness that the con is over, sadness that maybe you missed out on doing something that you really wanted to do, sadness that maybe your auto went too fast, sadness that maybe your photo op didn't turn out exactly the way it wanted. You're tired. Those are exhausting days. Like you're going. So you're really exhausted at the end of the con. So your body is starting to shut down in a lot of ways. You've got FOMO. Like I said, you can't do it all, but it's so hard not to want to do it all, especially when you hear somebody else talk about, oh well, at the post-con concert, Jensen stopped in and he did this song, or oh well, at the radio company panel they did this, or oh, whenever they did the Walker tour this happened, or oh, and such is meet and greet. So like no matter what you do, you're gonna hear other stories, and it's like, oh, I hate I didn't do that. But what you need to focus on is what you did get the chance to do and what did bring you joy. Again, comparison is the thief of joy. I feel like I almost feel like I should make that the motto for the podcast: is comparison is the thief of joy, because that is something I continuously preach. Not to compare your experiences to others. And that being said, talk to other fans. Talk to the people that you made friends with during the con. They're going to be experiencing that as well. For some of us, for me especially, after I get home, sometimes I might not talk to my fandom friends for a couple of days. Only because it almost hurts to have been in that moment with them, and then suddenly, well, can't talk but a minute, I gotta run into work, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. So for me personally, sometimes I don't talk to them for a couple of days, but I do know for other people, it helps to talk to each other. If you're in those Facebook groups, which of course I always recommend you are, that's a good place to talk about your experiences. Post your JPEGs when they come in. Post videos that you took, pictures that you took. People that missed panels will get to see, pictures and videos that you took of panels. People that, didn't get to maybe stop by some of the tables in the vendor room. They'll see some of the merchandise. They'll see some of the things. And again, that's going to create a little FOMO for some of us, but it also shows them the opportunities for what's out there in case they decide to do another con. And remember that all these feelings are normal. Like, there's nothing wrong with you for feeling any of this. It's all normal. And it's okay to feel them, and it's okay to let them wash over you. As you come back home, Not all of us, most of us, as a matter of fact, don't have the luxury because, again, anxious, broke, and loving it, don't have the luxury of taking that extra day off work. For Austin this year, I did take an extra day. Again, Austin was a little atypical for me because I do love Austin as a city. It's not uncommon for me to fly. Like, typically, I'm flying in on Thursday night, maybe after work, and then I'm flying right back out Monday morning. So, this con gave me a little bit of wiggle room on each side, and that's a little atypical for me. Does that help with the con drop? Not really. It helps me adjust in some ways, but it doesn't really help with con drop. One of the things that can help with con drop, and not everybody likes to hear this, but this is like the ongoing joke among the vets. The best way to get over con drop is to go ahead and start planning your next con. Even if it's that same con a year later or 2 years later, go ahead and start planning it. Like, if you can plan a con 2 years in advance, that's fine. Go ahead and put the countdown on your phone. Go ahead and start setting aside the money for the photo ops. As soon as this stuff starts going on, so like plan, go ahead and make yourself a list. What type of ticket do I want to get? Who is it I want to meet this time? What special things do I want to do this time that I didn't get a chance to do? Planning another con will give you that to focus on. But then the reality is not everybody can start planning another con. That's okay. Go on to YouTube. Watch the videos. Even if it's not of the con you just finished, watch other videos. Watch the show. Watch your favorite episodes. One time I came back from a con, and all I did was read fan fiction for like a week and a half. It was an interesting way to try and combat post-con drop. It sort of worked. I'm not much into fan fiction lately. Fan fiction for me is a little different than it is for some people because I view the show and fan fiction differently than most do. I'm not going to get into that because those are some things that I really just don't want to get into if we can avoid it. But just keep in mind, whatever you can do to focus on the joy that you had at that con, to remember those moments, those photo ops, you've got those 8x10s. Get the JPEGs. Order calendars. Order mugs. Order 20x40 posters and, wallpaper your house with them. Whatever it takes. Get coasters. Wherever you get your joy. Whatever makes you remember that moment. Write down whatever it was that Jensen or Jared or Misha or Mark said to you that made you feel special. If Jason gave you an extra squeeze whenever he was talking to you, hold on to that. If Billy said something that made you feel seen, remember that. Every single moment of that con that gave you joy, focus on that and remember those moments. And while you can be sad that you're not still in those moments, be grateful that you had those moments. Because again, there are so many people out there that still haven't had the opportunity to go to one of these cons and haven't gotten the chance to have that joy. So keep that in mind. Always try and find the joy where you can and absorb it. It's so hard. Like I said, you're going to have con drop. I wish I had the miracle pill that would be like, pop, oh, I'm fine. I'm good. Nope, you're going to have con drop. It's okay. Listen to old episodes of the podcast. Listen to other podcasts. DJ Qualls has a great podcast that I highly recommend because he's hilarious that he does with his best friend Kelly. If podcasts aren't your thing, that's fine. Go on to Spotify and create a playlist of your favorite supernatural songs. Get a diamond painting and make a diamond painting of supernatural. You can get custom ones ordered on Amazon. Get Lynn's book, Family Don't End in Blood. Go through, read all the different chapters that the different people, different cast members have written. Like, there are so many ways that each of us can find joy, and anything that you can pull on that can save that, then do that. I know people that will post, my friend Charla, instead of posting all of her photo ops at once, she'll post like one per day for a while, and that extends out her joy and her happiness. And that's a great idea. because she's spreading it out. So do that. Whatever works for you, whatever brings you that joy. Again, there's no right or wrong. We're all just trying to figure it out. And this is something else. If you've got an idea, if you've got something that works for you for con drop, please send me that. Please. There's no such thing as having too many ideas for con drop. Again, take care of yourself during the con and after the con. It's very emotional, can be very overwhelming. That's okay. That's the nature of the beast. Trust the process, enjoy the moments, and take care of yourself. Anything you feel is valid, and don't let anybody make you feel otherwise. Don't let anybody make you feel like your feelings are not valid. You can be happy one moment and then crying the next. Build your community. Even as many times as I've done the cons, I came out of a Jensen op on Sunday. I had a Jensen op on Sunday that was just, I don't even have words for how wonderful, how great and amazing it was. And I came out and it was just like I was walking on air, for one. Almost forgot where my stuff was. One of my friends was in line, and I heard her call my name. And I don't know if it was the first time she called my name or she called it a couple times, because it's possible she called it a couple of times. And I look up, and she was coming towards me with her arms wide open, because she saw me, and she knew I needed a hug in that moment. And I did, because all of me was falling apart in the beauty and the awe and just the vulnerability of that moment. And I needed that hug from her. And it helped me. And then I walked outside, and there was another friend out there that I've made. And I got another hug from her. And I was like, there were tears in my eyes, because the experience was just so good for me. I mean, like, you can't put a price on that. Again, that's why we're anxious, broke, and loving it, because, you can't put a price on those moments. You can't put a price on the joy that these cons bring us. If you're not finding joy in the cons, rework what you're doing, because there is joy in there for you. We can find, if something's not working for you, let me know. We can look at what you're doing. Maybe you're trying to do too much. Maybe you're not doing enough. Maybe you're comparing too many things. Maybe you're doing it in the wrong order. But we will find you joy in those cons, because those cons are a joy pit. So that being said, I just, I mentioned it earlier about, sending us the information about your con relationships, friendships, breakups, upsets. Please submit that information to us. But I do want to give you a little teaser for our next episode. We're going to dive into the art of con fit, cosplay, themed outfits, and how to feel amazing in your skin while navigating con chaos. But we're also opening the floor to you. So, anything that you've found that works for you as far as con outfits, for some of us, and I'm not going to touch on too much because that's the whole next episode, but if you've got ideas of things that have worked for you as far as con outfits, go ahead and send me those too. Cosplay, send me that too. Again, this podcast, I want it to be interactive. I want you guys to be a part of this podcast. I have lots of information to give you, but I have so much information I can receive from you guys too, newbies and vets alike. So just send us your information. We might share some of your experiences in upcoming episodes. So get creative, get real, and get them to us. Let me know. I'll be glad to give a shout out. If you want your name attached to a story, I will be glad to throw it out there. If you want to remain anonymous, not a problem at all, however you want it. So just keep in mind, next episode, we're going to talk about the art of the con outfit, how to slay, stay comfortable, and still feel like you. So just remember, guys, you're not alone, your emotions are valid, and yes, you survived, conquered even. You made your con experience the best con experience you could have, and never doubt that. So again, from Anxious, Broken, Loving It, love to have you guys here. Love that you're listening. Hope that you're finding something special in these podcasts. Hope that you're sharing them with your friends. Hope you're finding something to connect. Thank you so much to all of you that are sending me the messages about how it is helping you. Thank you to those of you in Austin that came up to me and told me that it's helped you. That's why I wanted to do this, because I want to give something back to this community that has given so much to me. It is something that I always tell everybody. I would have never found the con community without Gail and Krista and their YouTube videos. Unfortunately, Krista is no longer with us. But I am oh so grateful for the videos that she gave us, the heart that she gave us, the love that she gave us, and the legacy that she built for us, and the people that she touched and continues to touch, because both her videos and Gail's videos continue to bring people into these cons every single time. And I am very fortunate that I have been able to tell both of them that they are what brought me to this con and these cons, and that I am so grateful to them, and I am so grateful for the time and the effort that they spent to take the videos, to post the videos, to invest in the fandom. But as always, this is Anxious, Broken, Loving It. This was episode 5. I hope you guys found something from it, as we talked about panel tears and hotel lobby meltdowns. And I'll see you guys on the con floor.
I saw your name in the rearview mirror, faded like the line on a weathered sign. The radio played an old believer, and I drove slow like I had the time. You left a note on a diner napkin, said don't wait up, I'll be gone by dawn. I took the long road past Abilene, still hum your voice when the lights come on. And I still chase the highway light, like it might lead me back to you. Every mile's a maybe, every sky's still blue. I've got an empty seat and an open sky, but your goodbye still rides beside. You always said you were born to wander, that love was just a roadside spark. But I was steady like Sunday morning. You were firework and I was dark. And I still chase the highway light, like it might lead me back to you. Every mile's a maybe, every sky's still blue. I've got an empty seat and an open sky, but your goodbye still rides beside. Maybe some hearts just don't settle down. They live in motion, not in towns. But I still leave the porch light on, like you're rolling before the dawn. So I chase the highway light, like it remembers who we were. Every song still singing, every turn still stirs. I've got time to kill and hope to drive, but your goodbye still rides beside. Yeah, your goodbye still rides beside.